Warning, the following communications are not authorized. Please disable your signals and report to your local re-education center immediately. Failure to comply will result in immediate reprimand and capital punishment.
Welcome back to New York City, where we're paying 1,000 people. We're paying people 1,000 a month, Eric Butler, to what? To stay in prison, I guess.
Yeah, to not commit crime. So, I mean,
do I get $1,000 to not commit crimes?
Well, you have to first commit crime and then not commit crime, right? So,
well, everyone's a criminal now in the COVID days. Anything stepping out of your house in Australia is a crime. You see the riots that are happening there? Well, I guess it's not really a riot. It's a protest that's being stopped for their own health.
It's an uprising?
I don't know. Have they ever uprisen? I don't know if anything.
I hope so. They should, right? Because they're also...
They should.
And full disclosure, I have not researched all of this myself, but there's those clips going around of how they're going to vaccinate children without their parents' permission. Like, that's insane. Big if true.
I saw that clip. I'm not sure. I wish the people who record these things would, tell the people what was happening while they were recording it, but that's what that one random clip is saying. But
speaking of that, really quick though, speaking of a little more context, I got very angry at a clip that's going around of, probably you've seen it, of somebody with pallets and pallets of what looks like American dollars, and they just take it out of the plastic wrapping and start thumbing through it, and it's like there's no context. And then of course obviously people are talking about, oh, Bitcoin's the future, which fine by me. I have some Bitcoin, so okay, let's do it. But
was that in Afghanistan or something?
Dude, there's zero context to it. I should have sent it to you before, but obviously I just thought about it. But there needs to be more context to some of this stuff. Absolutely. Perhaps that's why we're missing context. That's the
wow. Barely informed with that. So New York is launching a program to pay young criminal offenders $1,000 per month for participation in good behavior. Let's see what this says. You can hear that?
No, that's just like the recap.
Dude,
okay. Why am I still getting the echo though?
I don't know. You got a problem. You've got audio problems in your life. Fix them.
Do you hear it?
No, I just hear the regular feed. You probably have a browser open or something. I don't know. Anyways, you probably hear, I don't know. You probably hear like the regular feed and the actual feed. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why saying that over and over again is funny to me. A New York pilot program has come under fire for what local reports describe as a plan to pay young criminal offenders $1,000 each per month for their continued involvement in the program and good behavior. The Big Apple's month-long plan to try out the advanced peace model is reaching fruition this month after Bill de Blasio, of course, and public advocate Jumaine Williams first announced in March their intentions to pilot the program, according to a report by The Trace, which partnered with the local news site The City. The Trace, I don't know how I feel about that. The program is being tested through 5 precincts, one in each of the New York City boroughs, according to the mayor's office. De Blasio said during the press conference at the time that Williams approached him about utilizing the advanced peace model. I like how it's always word games, isn't it, Eric? The advanced peace model is the advanced welfare model. Under the pilot, the city would conduct outreach in areas with high levels of gun violence to identify youth who are at risk of gun violence, it states. Select individuals are then invited to join the Peacemaker Fellowship, which pairs mentees with individual neighborhood change agents who mentor them and set tangible goals like driver's license or a GED. So we're now paying people to get driver's licenses, GEDs, not commit gun crimes. This isn't even welfare. This is, I don't know, like you're literally paying criminals or people that you think may be criminals, which I guess is kind of insulting as well. Because what if you're just
criminals?
Well, didn't it say here that they're going to select people and identify youth who are at risk for gun violence?
Okay, I suppose. See, here's what's happening. I think when you change the article, I get the echo. But when you go back, I don't.
I think that's what Street Guido said as well.
All right, how about now?
It's fine. So
All right.
I would be insulted if I was a kid or an adult in a neighborhood with a bunch of violence and I wasn't one of the people, and they're just like, "Oh, you seem like you might commit some crimes. Here's
So,
$1,000," which I guess may be cool. I don't know.
well, maybe I'm misreading it a little bit, because I was under the impression that if you click in some of those links, like the trace or the city, I was under the impression that it you would you, you're not just at risk, right? You've actually been in the system already. Yeah,
This is a
so
prevention
that
program. Violent prevention
preventing
program
more
provides
crimes.
participants. Yes. Advanced Peace. The program known as Advanced Peace will launch in one precinct in each borough. Young people deemed at risk for involvement in gun crime with formerly incarcerated mentors. So the mentors are the ones who committed crimes, and they're going to teach children who may commit crimes not to commit crimes by giving them $1,000 a month. So here's a former criminal. God bless you if you're not anymore. We're going to give you the power to choose which children that you've determined to be at risk to give $1,000 to. If you're a 17-year-old kid, what are you going to do with $1,000? You're going to just take the money and you're going to try to be more clandestine about your crimes that you commit.
You're gonna buy sneakers and weed, and I mean, if I'm just making
Wow,
broad
is that
sweeping,
what you did?
if I'm just making broad sweeping generalizations about what a young person in somewhere in Brooklyn might do with a free $1,000. But this just it's just it's just hilarious, because every time you think we've hit the rock bottom, there's more, right? Like, I mean, they just will not stop. So obviously this is completely and totally backwards, right? I mean, and we saw it. They even they point to the same advanced piece, which is the perfect euphemism, right? They're really good at that. How it worked. Where else could this have possibly worked? California, naturally. So they say it worked there. They say it's gonna work in New York, and I just don't see it happening. If anything, and maybe the criminals aren't smart enough, or maybe the young people aren't smart enough to realize that you have a chance at getting a free $1,000 every month if you get yourself into this program somehow. So I don't know. Are they?
Lifelong, this is like Yang Gang on steroids. Lifelong goals, like obtaining a driver's license or a GED. If they're telling me that I'm getting $1,000 a month to work towards getting a driver's license, well, then I'm going to be like, well, I need a month to study. I need a month to practice, do some practice tests. And now I've only got my learner's permit. So that's not my driver's license that you guys. Now you got to, I don't know what the law is. How long do you have to wait between a learner's permit and a full license in New York?
Probably 6 months.
Yeah,
That'd be my
it's a
guess.
year
6 8
here.
months.
Here it's a year and 8 months if you go to driving school. So you could potentially be making $1,000 a year or $1,000 a month for like a year and a half. If you really wanted to stretch it out. We're getting a GED. How are these lifelong goals? That
And
should just be a regular goal.
and obviously the next question right in front of you is, do you need ID, right? Because we heard
That's true.
that. I mean, are they just going to hand out cash? Is it going to be checks, debit cards? Are they going to
Mm-hmm.
prove anybody's who they actually are before they start giving this out? Because again, we know that having ID is racist if you want to vote, but it's not racist if you want to get into a restaurant in New York. So it's just
Exactly. I was reading something somebody put out the other day about how, of course, we need vaccine passports. How are we supposed to tell who's who and who's being let in, and if they're faking it or not? If like, of course, you need this, and you need an ID to be able to prove that it's you along with it to match the name up. And then, of course, this person's replies were all filled with the hypocrisy because this was New York, where it's supposed to be too difficult to get an ID, or else it's racist. It's you have to step on your own argument every time these things come out in order for it to make sense. They're saying that this is for gun violence. Now, is this where they're taking the money from the New York police budget? I'm guessing the $1 billion they took. And is this what they're putting it towards? Maybe. I mean, I don't see that. I don't predict that this is going to work, but at least they're giving it to the people. I'm struggling lately, Eric, I took like a political compass test yesterday, which I like to do every year because we have an election coming up. And I now struggle with questions like, do you think the government should be giving more money to businesses that were shut down because of the lockdowns? And I'm just like, well, no, that's my money. I don't think the government should be giving out all this money. But if the government's spending all of my money anyways, shouldn't they just be giving it back to the people? So maybe at this point, if taxes are as high as they are in New York, and then it ends up giving back to people, I don't know if I should have as much of a problem with that. The problem in here obviously lies that you're giving it to people based on nothing, based on thinking that they're criminals or that they used to be criminals. But if the government's going to take all your money anyways, should I be more okay with them giving it back to us?
Well, I guess theoretically, yes. However, in New York City, I'm going to take, again, a little bit more cynical approach and just say that this is one of those things that they're going to say is happening, but the money won't even this stupid plan to pay criminals still won't make it into the hands of the people who need it the most, because you have guys like Bill de Blasio standing in the way. And it will never, I mean, de Blasio and his wife, Flavor Flav, she looks like Flavor Flav.
Now I got to look her up.
Yeah, Shirlane McRae is her name, I believe, but she notoriously could not account for $850 million taxpayer dollars when she set up the NYC Thrive mental health thing. Yeah, what a mess.
That's pretty impressive that you remembered her name, Shirlane McRae. That's a good musician's name or something.
Flavor I have a personal bone to pick with these people. Yeah,
true. Not only does it have to go through the mayor's office and everything, but you're also entrusting people who just got out of prison. I know it seems mean, and you believe in a second chance in America, which is fine, but I don't necessarily believe in give this person a second chance and make them in charge of government programs where we're handing out thousands of dollars per month to children or teens who may or may not be involved. They're close enough to crime that you think that they will probably be involved in it or already are. So it's really weird. It's the same thing with the opportunity zones. And if anyone's saying like, what's your example of this? The opportunity zones that Trump gave out, which was like, I don't know how much, a couple $100 million per city or something like that. A lady was in the White House roundtable saying that the problem is you give our cities this money and it never makes it to the local level. So it's always a big problem is you've got so many steps of politicians along the way. I don't know who's getting this. Is the city getting this and then it's giving it to the prison system, or is it going to this program and it's going to, guy who just got out of jail or was in jail previously for gun violence? I don't know. That's a lot of faith you're putting in people for all these steps, Eric Butler of TatumReport.com.
Especially considering how corrupt New York is. I mean, from the governor all the way down, right? Cuomo got in by investigating the last governor, and then he got out by being investigated by the person who was in his position. I mean, so it's corrupt all the way to its core. But just really quick about your thing about second chances is, we all know that the second chances only work for a specific group of people. You think Derek Chauvin's going to get a second chance?
He already had his second chance. He had 8 minutes of second chance.
Yeah. So it just like the second chance thing is kind of played out. I think it's. It's done. New York's done, bro.
The problem is you're giving people money who have committed crimes or you think are going to commit crimes to stop them from committing crimes. And if you're going to do that, then you need to give the people who have never committed a crime double the amount of money. You can't just give people money for quitting cigarettes, because then there's 99% of people who have made the right decision to never be addicted to cigarettes who don't get any value out of that. Eric
and
Butler,
for the record, they did do that in San Francisco. Scott Wiener.
They gave people money for not smoking?
For meth heads, for like dope fiends.
Oh,
so Scott Wiener, who I have,
nice name.
Personally can't stand. He is the one who is most famous for trying to make it not a crime to pass AIDS on to your partner.
Mm-hmm, I remember that.
And eliminating the sexual offenders registry for young. Dude, it was all so convoluted. It's like, well, if you're only 8 years apart and not 10 years apart, you don't have to it was a mess. The guy is a complete scumbag, but he famously pitched the idea of gift cards. Now, it wasn't cold hard cash. I will admit that. But he pitched the idea of giving gift cards to meth heads who stay clean. It's like, were you going to give a meth head a Home Depot gift card? Like, none of
He's
this
got
makes any
things to
sense.
build.
Yeah.
Somebody
What?
somebody emailed me at Rebel News the other day and said, "Do you guys want donations or do you accept scrap wood?" And I think it was a serious email.
Well, the price of building a house is
Lumber,
going up. I don't know
exactly.
if you guys are feeling
Lumber
the
is high right now.
similar
Yes, everything.
inflation thing. Yeah, okay.
Everything's high. What's your gas price there? We can calculate that in liters to gallons or gallons to liter. How much is it per gallon?
In Sioux Falls right now, the cheapest I've seen in the past week is $2.94 per gallon. That's the cheapest I've seen. It was $1.97 in January. So a full
liters
dollar
to gallons.
Yeah, you love to do math on the show. I don't know why you like that.
I do. It's almost exactly the same.
But in January,
well, actually,
it was
no.
197.
1 liter is 0.2. I don't know how I'm supposed to calculate it. I forget it, but it's 133 here per liter right now. It's been up to 140, so I think you're supposed to calculate the difference. I'll do that another time, but it's expensive. It's very expensive. It hasn't been this high in my entire lifetime. There was a time probably 12-ish years ago, 13 years ago, where it was like $1 and getting up to $1.20, and it hasn't been that high since. And then right before Biden got in, lowest it's been in years, because everybody's like, this pipeline's coming, you guys. They've agreed to the pipeline. We're getting it all the way to the States. We're going to make so much money. Justin Trudeau, for some reason, he wanted to make the money. He wanted to make a good decision at that time. For once, it wasn't his fault that the pipeline didn't get built. And ever since then, it's gone up and up and up.
And did you see that clip of him? Did you see that clip of him talking about how he spoke with Hillary Clinton about women and girls?
Yeah, that's really weird.
That was creepy, bro. Like, what?
Yeah, he's really starting to sound dictatorial. Is that the right word? Dictatorly recently. He's getting mad because he made 2 stops in Ontario last week, got booed, got yelled at, and his staff try to cheer on so that you can't hear it. Went to Manitoba, got booed, really got sworn at. People were just laying into him. Alberta got booed. And then in British Columbia, his native activists blocked his bus. A reporter from our company called Global News, you want to be funny, call them Globalist News. One of the journalists on the bus, because they have all these journalists roll around with them, lied and said that his bus had never been blocked in all the cities. And then we had it on tape. One of our cameramen, Mocha, had it on tape for 30 minutes. They were standing there and blocking the bus and saying, now they were saying stuff like stolen land and that crap, which of course
so they're mad at him for a different reason.
They are. But the point was that they pretended that he didn't get heckled and didn't get his bus stopped. But one woman there at least made a good point, because when the whole mass grave thing, or the unmarked cemetery of the Native children was found, he went and he took this photo op where he was sitting in front of a grave, and then the girl said that was my reserve that he was at, that he went for this fake photo op. So that's a legitimate complaint to me. But when you got the other white girl standing there saying, you're on stolen land, get out of here. I mean, it's funny that you're making fun of Trudeau, but I don't agree with that argument at all, you might say.
So where, I mean, if you're, you talk to people on the street, you do streeters and stuff. I mean, and you talk to some crazy people, right?
You have to.
Most recently, I think the one that probably went the most viral was the girl who said she was going to wear a mask for 2 years, just randomly.
That was special.
But my question is, and the people you talk to, even the crazy people who are, all in for goggles and masks and mandates and all that stuff, do they voice that hey, I like Trudeau, I like these policies, or have they just bought into the narrative without actually knowing anything? I mean, because I would venture to say that you could talk to anybody in the entire country of the United States, and nobody would say, I like Kamala Harris for X, Y, and Z reason. You know what I mean? Even though they might want the mandates, they might like the mask, they might say oh, black woman, but they don't actually know anything about it. So do people like Trudeau? I mean, is there somebody I like this policy that he did? You run into that often?
Well, of course, they never have the policy. That's just not a thing. And even people that I would tend to agree with don't know. Went and did a set of interviews at a rally recently, and I was asking the actual candidates for the People's Party of Canada what policies they want to institute, because like they're all running for certain ridings. They're called like districts essentially. And I'm just like, what are you going to do? Like X so and so, you're from like where I grew up. Like, what are you going to do for that area? And they all spoke like they're running federally. Oh, we want freedom of speech and we want less censorship and we want no coercion and everything. But it's like, okay, but like you are running a very specific set of like 50,000 people. What are you going to do for them? So even a lot of the people running for political seats don't know the policies.
Don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. But as for Justin Trudeau, like the most people, usually people, I find the younger people, he's not left enough for them. Anybody who's working class, they think he's a piece of garbage. And it tends to be immigrant families who like him because they've been able to come to the country and get a good opportunity. And that's not their fault that they're afforded this opportunity. But when you let in 400,000 people a year, you're all like, some part of that is undoubtedly to get more votes. So I see a lot of older immigrant couples like from India or places like that, Sri Lanka. They like Justin Trudeau because he let them come to this country and they're able to support their family, for example. So I see a lot of that. Old white women and old men on the East Coast like Justin Trudeau because, you know, they voted for his father and they think everything stayed the same since then. So he gets a lot of votes on the East Coast where everything's sort of like calm and peaceful usually, and then sporadically out through the rest of the country. It's a really close race the last two elections. I mean, 35% gets you a victory. 35% of the country. So not in the US where it's basically like theoretically got to be 51%, right? But in Canada, you got Ontario's got a ton of liberal and conservatives. Quebec's all French. The East Coast is liberal. The Midwest is, conservative. And then the West Coast is somewhere between liberal and communist. So it's crazy. It's true, but it's crazy that like there's such few percentage points between what's the prime minister of the country and what isn't. And then what ends up happening after that is they make these little coalitions where like the leftist political groups are going to agree on something so they can get to pass. So Trudeau wins, nothing really changes. It's probably like politically speaking, but it's probably going to get worse because he's talking about you think you could just get on a bus with people who are vaccinated if you're not? You think you can just get on a train? It's actually trains and planes they're banning. But any travel across, it sounds like anything other than driving yourself, you can't do. And, a lot of people want to make it so you can't go to gyms and restaurants. That's what they're doing in Quebec. A guy in Quebec actually said their head medical personnel actually said that the restrictions could become permanent. I'm going to see if I can find that. Restrictions could become permanent, Quebec, because this is a pretty insane thing to say. I think he's the first person to say that. There we go. Westphalian Times. I've met these people a couple times. Not a very big website, but they do their due diligence. Quebec's public health director says measures in place could become permanent. Horacio Arruda, Quebec's public health director, refused to exclude the possibility that current measures in place could become permanent. I think I met this guy. I'm not sure. When asked by a journalist from Journal de Montreal when the COVID measures would be lifted, Horacio Arruda refused to exclude it. That's what the title was. Mandatory masks, limits on private gatherings, quarantine, vaccination in some industries, mandatory vaccination to go to restaurants and attend any non-essential social activities, which is crazy. So he also, I remember reading this the other day, everybody, of course, used to talk about like 60 or 70% was the benchmark we wanted to get for vaccines. They mentioned 95% in this last press conference. He said you shouldn't be surprised. Something like, don't be surprised if we're going up for 95%, or like that's something more realistic that we're going for now. So COVID zero is obviously a very stupid plan to get.
But it's insane because even in New York and California, they quite literally celebrated the quote unquote 70% benchmark. Like they opened Disneyland and yay, like we'll go to Disneyland, and they had fireworks in the city in New York. And it's like, wait, so 6 weeks ago you were celebrating this monumental injection rate or whatever, and now you're saying, no, it doesn't matter. Put the mask back on. Lockdowns are coming again. You can't go eat. Like, they're literally telling people they can't go work out unless they get the shot. Like, it's beyond me, but here we are. This is 1984, I guess.
Well, I believe that was the number most people in medicine and immunology spoke of at the beginning.
The scientists?
Yeah, between 60 and 70% for herd immunity. But now talking about herd immunity is illegal. And obviously they're just using that as an excuse to like, oh, that's so far away. We can just say that now. But now it's perpetual lockdown. We can show some of the Avi Yemeni stuff if we want.
And the herd immunity thing, though, for whatever reason, does not include people who got the infection naturally. That doesn't count.
Exactly. And another sneaky thing they're doing is when they say that the vast majority of people in hospitals are unvaccinated. They're counting the statistics of people who were in hospital for it before the vaccine was out, which is a crazy thing to include. But let's watch some Avi Yemeni in Australia just so people can really get an idea of how crazy it is there.
Thousands of protests here behind me, and you can see now the riot police have formed to confront the protesters, and hundreds of police, not socially distanced on that side either, but they have got once again their rubber bullets and pepper spray. We've seen today, unlike any protest before in Melbourne, they've started to use this tool, the rubber bullets, against their own citizens.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Fucking dogs!
So they're firing tear gas now on the crowd, at our legs. This is the state of freedom in Melbourne, Australia. We're reporting on a protest. The only danger you face is from police. Since that day,
devastating than the disease. We get protests like this. And as far as the police go, next time they strike for a pay rise and they ask for the sympathy of the public, you know what? They might just not get it.
Have a look at him. Fine. Can we get a photo?
My face, right on my face. I wasn't even running. I was just standing.
they really want to quash this protest today. It has been an absolute embarrassment for the state, for the police, that once again, when they promised us thousands, we're not going to be able to march on these
There's
streets.
one shot in there, before I show you guys the whole video, you should go to rebelnews.com. There's one shot in there that shows you, here it is. Really nice camera he's got there. That's a shit ton of people right there. Like, that is packed to the brim of the street. So that's probably 10,000 people if you keep going up there. So they're using rubber bullets. They end up showing a guy there, Eric, of a guy who's got a wound in his stomach from either a rubber bullet or a beanbag. They're using the pepper balls, obviously, that they used in America. But this is supposed to be for your safety.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's mind-boggling. Like, how can, you see all the clips of that guy who says you can't take your mask off to drink. Don't talk to people. Don't talk to your neighbors. Right. I believe those were political, politicians in Australia. And at this point, even those people can't look back at that footage and say, we're keeping you safe. I mean, how? It's just, how can you can go on television and say, don't talk to your neighbor. And then you can watch people being sprayed with tear gas and rubber bullets and say, and literally with a straight face, really say that this is for your safety. I mean,
police packing the streets shoulder to shoulder for your safety. And if you're thinking of the girl, that's the Prime Minister of New Zealand, where she's a democratic socialist. So they voted in a communist. So I guess they're getting what they wanted. There's another guy that I sent you earlier this week from San Diego that is just hilarious. There's no way to set this up. He's just at a San Diego city council meeting. And I like the best part where they ask him his name and he just keeps going. Let's watch this. It's a few minutes long, but it's great.
That's the wind. That's the wind of time. That's the wind of history. That's the wind blowing through your ancestors' bones, begging you to do the right thing.
Sir, can you please state your
That
name
is
for
the
the audio record?
wind that Matt Baker is calling upon from Ocean Beach. The wind that is blowing through the black people, through the white people, through the Chinese people, through the Mexican Americans, to the people that built this building with their bare hands to raise up this nation. They are begging you, and they are blowing through your veins, and they should be putting a tingle up the spine of your back, and they should be begging you to do the right thing. You're about to open a pit of hell. You do not get a vaccine passport put on us. You know, as the population who's in control, you know that the people who are the politicians, once you get a power, you will never relinquish it. Do you think that the 4 feet of marble that holds you above high in this chamber will help you from the fate of humanity which you are unleashing? No! It won't! Your children and your children's children will be subjugated! They will be asked, how many vaccines have you had? Have you been a good little Nazi? Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci! Hail Fauci! There's been a lot of talk about the Nuremberg Code. I brought you a copy. You are all in violation of Section 1. Yes, you, Dr. Wooten. You are in violation of the Nuremberg Code, which is international law, and the definition is...
Thank you, sir. Your time has expired.
The definition, we shall not be coerced. All of this is coercion. The vaccine passport is coercion, and the penalty for violating the Nuremberg Code is...
violating the orientation of the meeting. Please take a seat.
Oh my God.
Please take a seat.
Now, the best comment I saw on that was he should be a professional wrestler, like promoter or something.
I like how he drops the Nuremberg, the paper on the desk there at the end of it. He walks over and leaves the paper on the desk. But this, I love this guy. And I think it's a welcome change of pace from the propaganda that we've been inundated with for the past 18 months or maybe longer than that now. Who's even keeping track anymore? And with things like, and this is California, right? This is San Diego. So
isn't San Diego traditionally a more conservatively run area?
It is 100%, but it's still California. It's not Wyoming. It's not South Dakota. You know what I mean? So, and even some of my friends back home in California, like, used to make fun of San Diego. Like, I knew a guy in college who was from San Diego, and he was like appalled by how conservative his parents were. And I'm like, dude, they literally paid thousands upon thousands of dollars for you to go to this fancy school. But that's not the point, and I digress. But you don't see this happening in South Dakota or Wyoming or, in the regular places, because the overreach hasn't gotten quite that bad, at least yet. But we also see in New York, the business owners suing de Blasio. Now, I will go ahead and pat myself on the back a little bit here, because I sued de Blasio in May of 2020 for simply arresting me for protesting the lockdown in May of 2020, only to be followed, of course, I know I tell this story probably all the time, but only to be followed by the George Floyd protesters who camped out at the same park I was arrested at for 3 weeks and actually got what they were asking for. When de Blasio defunded the NYPD by $1 billion, they said that's not enough. And now de Blasio is looking for those same police officers to enforce vaccine passports at restaurants after he literally turned his back on them. So the entire thing's a mess. But I think this is a good sign that we're seeing places like California, even if it is a little bit more conservative in San Diego, and we're seeing the restaurants, even if they are, I'll put it this way. Staten Island, where I think the lawsuit against de Blasio sort of originated from, an Italian restaurant in Staten Island, is sort of the San Diego of New York. It's a little bit more conservative, but it's still New York, right? And so those people are going to have to stand up. And that in conjunction with the way that, what am I trying to say here? That in conjunction with the way that the White House is promoting the vaccines with these young TikTok influencers, all is sort of seeming me to believe that maybe just maybe this might come to an end soon, right? So you have those blue bubbles finally standing up, and the White House aiming at Gen Z, far left weirdo TikTok influencers. So everything is sort of pointing in the direction that possibly, maybe it could come to an end.
Well, hopefully the next story about the CDC announcing booster shots will make people start to wonder, like, all of a sudden I'm not vaccinated anymore. I'm not counted as that. But let's see what's going on in our worlds right now. Paying the bills, as we like to call it. I think I got that term from a sports show a long time ago. Eric Butler's on TatumReport.com. Of course, a recent article of his that I just pulled up was a man denied heart transplant for refusing COVID vaccine, which of course makes a lot of sense. You can see his stories at TatumReport.com, not just TatumReport.com, and you'll see more stuff like this. Of course, Brandon Tatum, Officer Tatum, he goes by, is the guy the website's named after, and Eric is a writer there. New York City 2020 Gotham Unglued hardcover is on Amazon. The price has just dropped by how many dollars? I can't tell. $4. So you should go ahead and get that. I have that behind me somewhere on the what would be your left-hand side. It's great. It's a lot of fun. I always play the game, as I always mentioned. Is it a pile of garbage? Is it winter tires? Or is it a human being? And of course, you can watch my show on rebelnews.com/Andrew Says, or go to the show tab and go to Andrew Says there. But my last guest was Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party of Canada. And I even asked him about Chris Sky, of course, but I asked him about vaccine passports, immigration policy, everything you can hope to be asked of him. I did, and it was fun because it's always fun to get people in person. Eric Butler. We can get to Hasan Piker now. Actually, let's go. We'll get to this, and then I'll go with the CDC announcement as the closer. But Hasan Piker used to be on the Young Turks. Is he actually related to Cenk, or is that just like a thing? He's Cenk's nephew.
I believe he's actually his nephew.
Well, he's got a two. Here's the thing. I remember him saying at a what's the conservative thing where they have debates and everything every year?
Politicon.
Yeah, Politicon. I remember him saying in a debate that he only gets paid $50,000 a year. So he probably makes way more on Twitch now, which is obviously a capitalist platform. So there's that. But you have to utilize the means to take over the fascists. Left-wing influencer Hasan Piker, formerly of Young Turks, is facing a wave of backlash after news surfaced he bought a nearly $3 million home in West Hollywood. So of course he probably didn't pay that up front, $2.74 million. But what do you got to pay for a down payment on that, Eric? $90,000 probably if you're paying 30%. No, that would be for 100. That would be for $300,000. You're paying 30%, then he's got to pay like $900,000. So that's a huge down payment. Just an estimation, of course. 3,800 square. You're in real estate, or you were in real estate. You should know. How much do I got to pay for a down payment?
Mostly rentals, but you get away with 20%.
Okay, so at least he's paying $200,000, probably $230,000 or something like that. Beverly Grove neighborhood, and where's that? Do we know where that is?
I'm not familiar with that neighborhood.
Okay, Piker hosts video streams on Twitch and has worked for the Young Turks, which was co-founded by his uncle Cenk. There you go. And we all love Cenk. Cenk is now like the least insane person on the Young Turks, which is hilarious. Some of Twitter suggested that Piker's new investment was hypocritical given his left-wing political stances, and he does, in fact, call himself a socialist, so no conflation there. It's just flat-out unethical to be profiting off of socialism and buying yourself a $3 million home in a state that is one of the highest homelessness rates in the country, said Alexis Isabel, who describes herself as a socialist. Well, who the fuck is that? Like, you just ran... Is that a person, or are we just asking a random person? And they also...
She does have a big Twitter following.
Okay. And they keep forgetting the letter I on the beginning of their sentences for some reason. If you're mad, I find this to be gross and unprincipled behavior. I don't really care. LOL. Where is this originally from? Fox News. So MSN taking Fox News articles as they're known to do. They can't write anything. MSN and Yahoo just feed and steal, I guess, for a price. Eric, should we be surprised at this at all? I mean, Hasan Piker, I don't watch him very much. He's one of those people where I watched enough to know that I disagree with him on a lot of things, on the Young Turks, on debates, like I mentioned, watched him debate at Politicon. And he just has this view where it's like everyone is in it for, everyone's in it for themselves. There can be no people making money without an underclass being stepped on or else workers being abused. And he's like the socialist, movement stream. Like, whereas you have Bernie Sanders, who's old and confused and stuff and has 4 homes, Hasan Piker was like, he's the young, arguably attractive guy who gets it with the youth, and he's promoting socialism, whereas even though it turns out he makes like probably a couple $100,000 from people watching and donating on Twitch. Now, it's not the donating that would be the problem. That would make most sense. It's the being on a capitalist platform that makes money off of ads, and the fact that he's not distributing his wealth, Eric.
Yeah, and I think some of his defense, the defense of this home purchase, is just absolute insanity. I mean, he blames the California housing market. He says, well, the housing market here is effed up. Like, so what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go gentrify another? Like, he just takes some other buzzwords and tries to flip it on its head. And then he likens Breitbart readers to left-wing Twitter personalities. I mean, the man just will not take any responsibility.
He's got responses in there. Ex-liberal says the echo is annoying. So I guess it happens when I forget what rule you said it was there. It's because the sound is on.
But when you go back to me and you, it'll be gone.
Interesting. I think it's because we're sharing the sound from the screen there. Who knows? Let me stop it for a second, then I'll redo it without the sound, and we'll see if that does anything better. How about now? Is it there now?
Let's see. No.
Let's see
now.
It's
gone.
Okay, so it's because I'm sharing the audio.
I can't hear it, but hopefully whoever is watching can't hear it anymore either, but much better on my end.
He said you literally have a Patreon link in your profile, LMAO. Well, that's just donation, so I don't see his point there. On Friday, he said, I live in LA. The housing market here is effed. Why is the argument that I should keep renting or that I should go gentrify somewhere else? Will this solve the problems? No, people are mad because lefty with house. That's it. He is oversimplifying it, I think, Eric, because, I mean, if you're a true socialist, you should be willing to go where the deal is the best. You're just basically accepting the system here, the system that's closest to your ideology, mind you. Go gentrify somewhere else. So like going and living somewhere else would mean you're gentrifying it. I don't agree with that. Should I keep renting? No, you should be able to own your own property. I agree with that. But your ideology does not.
He's suggesting, though, with the gentrification comment, that he would be going to a poor, presumably colored neighborhood, maybe South Central or something, and he would be the rich guy. Even though he's supposed to be a socialist, he would be the rich guy gentrifying the colored neighborhood, even though he's also colored, quote unquote. So none of it makes any sense. Like, dude, just own it. Like, you're a successful dude. I mean, we may or may not be able to link that directly to Chunk, but neither here nor there. I'm sure he's probably streaming on Twitch right now. So, more power to him. But it's just so obviously all completely fake. I mean, same with AOC. Depending on which article you look at, they mentioned AOC and her. Of course, she's got a place in New York, but also her fancy DC apartment. And
Bernie Sanders, girl from BLM.
How could I forget the girl from BLM, Patrice or whatever?
I don't know. You're black. That's weird.
But there's also Ayanna Pressley and Ilhan Omar, who collect rental income from tenants, right? Like,
yeah, who is the one who is saying that must have been one of them, but they're collecting. No, it's the girl who is for abolishing rent, and she was collecting the same one it's the same lady who's like, I need security guards, but we should defund the police. She was also for like the rent moratorium, but she was collecting rent money.
They were all doing it. Well, I don't know if AOC is collecting rent money, but she's driving around in a Tesla and living in a high rise in DC that doesn't have any affordable units. Now,
She'll never be poor again.
No, never. She can sell tax the rich sweatshirts.
Yeah, it's silliness. Hasan Piker, he's just got to play this role. It's like how they used to keep, like before there really was the internet, you'd have to believe that, this celebrity is doing this, or this Larry the Cable Guy is actually a poor guy, or else his family. There's a fly in front of me. I must stink. I must be satanic. You have to keep this image up, or else people aren't going to buy it. Like, this person ought to appear single for people to go view their movies, that sort of thing. Hasan Piker's got to tell his stupid teenage followers, no offense to teens, but if you're a teenage socialist, you will change your mind eventually. Hasan Piker is just capitalizing off of that. Does he know this? I don't know. That would have to insinuate that he's smart. I don't think he's a dumb guy, but I think it's very easy to have an attitude about things where you just tell people that they're bad people and, they're selfish and greedy capitalist scum, and then just not really have to look into it. As long as people are listening to you and sending you donations on Twitch, you don't really have to do any deep dive into that. But here we are.
It's also, though, that there's constantly levels, right? I mean, with Bernie, it was the millionaires and the billionaires until he wrote a book and became a millionaire. Then it was just the billionaires. But now, because Piker buys a $3 million house in LA, all they can say is, well, housing's so expensive in LA, $3 million is nothing. Like, a nice house in Hollywood costs $10 million, and he only spent $3 million. So it's like they just continue to point the finger, and it's so obviously fake that it's mind-boggling. I mean, it's right up there with the vaccine propaganda. It's like, guys, we can see you. We can see you. Like, they think there are people who are, I guess, running this country, or these shadowy establishment figures who I think they are still under the impression that the television has complete control, maybe like it did in 1992 when you didn't have a iPhone and everybody didn't have a computer in their pocket. Like, we can see you.
That's how I feel like Kamala and Biden, all of them, especially the Clintons, were still in that because they were around in the early 2000s in office, late 2000s, Obama's 06 or 08 to 16. And then, of course, she was in the 90s, where it's really like they think that people can't go back and see their previous statements on certain issues and everything. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up here with the CDC saying, there's no hope for us.
The vaccine effectiveness against SARS-CoV-2 infection is waning. And even though our vaccines are currently working well to prevent hospitalizations, we are seeing concerning evidence of waning vaccine effectiveness over time and against the Delta variant. Additionally, reports from our international colleagues, including Israel, suggest increased risk of severe disease amongst those vaccinated early. Given this body of evidence, we are concerned that the current strong protection against severe infection, hospitalization, and death could decrease in the months ahead, especially among those who are at higher risk or who were vaccinated earlier during the phases of our vaccination rollout. In the context of these concerns, we are planning for Americans to receive booster shots starting next month to maximize vaccine-induced protection. Our plan is to protect the American people and to stay ahead of this virus.
Whoops. So, Eric, I have two questions. One, so are they saying the vaccine is no longer effective for those who got it early? Is that what they're saying?
That's what it sounds like. Or it will become less effective. But it sounds to me like you kind of just like the first one's free, like for a dope fiend, a drug addict, like you're never gonna you're always gonna need more. You're never gonna reach that first level. So you get that first vaccine dose, and now you've artificially boosted your protection or whatever. So you're gonna keep needing fake protection for presumably the rest of your life.
Yeah, that would be a very big problem. My second question is, if we have vaccine passports, does that not render how many people in the U.S., let's say 200 million or 150 million have got it, are they not now back to the same status as being unvaccinated? If you have to have a booster now in order to be protected, or you got it too early and you need to get shots again, are you now not in the same category as everybody who was not vaccinated at all? Or are we going to go to levels now? You got your, level 1, you got your first 2 vaccinations, you can get into the front where all the peasants are, but at least you're not on the street. Level 2 now, you can sit down and eat. Level 3, you're in the back with the special people. I don't know. So basically, they're saying that it was pointless at the time. Now it's pointless. My problem is that they basically lied. They made all these promises that this was all going to go away and that you're going to be completely free. And now it's like, oh no, you actually have to keep doing this. It's like they keep dangling the carrot. Carrot lady comes back to strike me again, Eric.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, first of all, why do we believe this woman, right? She's fairly new to the as being the head of this, right? It was the other guy, Redfield.
She does pass on to Fauci after that.
Oh no, I can't. That guy, he's constantly on television with his weird word salad. Well, possibly it could infect the nasal pharynx, but George, the data on that is not so.
Every person you have an impression of is an old Italian guy.
Well, this one might be my best then.
Are you suggesting then, Eric, that old Italian men run the world?
Who knows, man? I don't. Cuomo, Fauci, I don't know, but
De Blasio, that's not Italian.
Well, he's Warren. And just first of all, this Walensky lady, she's an actress for all intents and purposes. She was on television. She was on television 4 to 6 months ago. Remember that? She was crying. She was like, "It's gonna be. I'm worried right now because it's gonna be." It's like, lady, really? You're going to be a crisis actor now? And on top of that, Fauci is 80 years old. He's older than Joe Biden. Fauci is older than Joe Biden.
Doing much better than him, though.
But why? What? Let me know. And perhaps I'm way off, out in the weeds here. But what other profession do we have that we take people seriously at 80 years old? You retire at 65 if you're lucky.
80 years old. Elder in a native tribe.
Okay, there we go. I mean,
shaman, perhaps.
So the point, do you see an 80-year-old car salesman just killing it? Selling used cars on the lot.
He's just killing it. This reminds me of the Ford Model T.
Exactly, right? Like back in 1916 or we can even take it as 1619. I know the left loves that stuff. But it doesn't make any sense. So she just admitted there, and to be honest with you, I hadn't seen that clip before. I can't stand that lady. She is just the worst, right up there with Fauci. But her whole dramatic, maybe you did it too early. Like, how much longer are we going to let these people lie to us? Right? How about this?
You did what you're supposed to do, and you got your vaccine right away, and now they're just like, oh, it's not good enough. Sorry, you got to get another one, or else your life. People are going to do it. Of course, old people are going to do it
until they just inject you. And nobody. We still will not admit that there's could possibly maybe be a side effect. Right? We have this story about the flight attendant, and they're like,
"Oh, I know you're not supposed to talk about it, but one of the guys I work with said a kid that he grew up with, and I think he's 24. He's no older than 25, but a kid he grew up with." Died from heart complications the night after he got the second dose.
Yeah, but just ignore that. Just ignore that. You won't be able to.
Of course.
I wasn't fully on board with this depopulation agenda. Just because I hadn't looked into it enough on my own. Right? Everybody said Bill Gates, whatever, depopulation, and clips of him doing a TED talk or whatever. Fine. I never fully bought into that, but the more they push this on us and the more extreme it gets, you can't fly. I think
it's just about making a communist class divide is what it is.
Okay. All right. And that could be it. And I truly don't know, but it's like, guys, we can watch this from the beginning be completely phony. I was going back through old photos of mine from the testing facility, and it's like these people were throwing around a football and sleeping in hammocks, telling you that you couldn't go to work because it was so scary. And the best
Back
of
when
all,
nobody knew anything, yeah.
exactly. And the best of all is when she admitted that lightning was more dangerous than the virus. And then you fast forward to this where, yeah, you got the shot. I mean, but now that shot doesn't work, right? So all the people who got it early on who didn't even get as much as a Krispy Kreme, they didn't get the $100. They didn't get any
You
of that
pieces
stuff.
of shit.
Yeah, I mean, are people going to like that leftist agitator out in New York who's always, he goes to the anti-vax the anti, no, the
The guy
medical
that Elad
freedom
was
rallies.
arguing with?
Yes.
I'd never heard of him until then. He has a huge following somehow. Like, I was pretty sure that was just like how does he have this big of a following when he clearly doesn't know what he's talking about?
Because he used to run the page. So now on Instagram, at least, I don't know if he's big on YouTube or Twitter or any other.
He's big on
platforms.
TikTok because Elad showed that where this guy's got like 100-something thousand on TikTok.
Okay, so he's probably doing the same on Instagram because he got famous, or he built the account We Effing Hate Donald Trump. That's what it used to be called, but then now that Trump's gone, it's called The Progressivist. And he just spouts nonsense. And Elad did a great job taking him down. He was completely off, talking about 100,000 people, blah blah blah. And Elad, he claims to be vaccinated. So
Yeah.
I mean, the point is, we've gotten so far away from reality and so out of the realm of logic that no amount of evidence or facts or logic is going to convince these people, because there's somebody inside the magic knowledge box that's going to tell them they have to keep doing this, no matter how much. Like, look. Last thing, the nurses, right? We see the signs, the meme, or it's not a meme. It's actually really quite serious. But of the nurses who were quote unquote heroes last summer are now getting fired because a vaccine now exists. I mean, how many? What's it going to take?
The first sign of hope that I've had from a union is up here. The what's the organization that runs like the trains and the buses in New York called?
The MTA?
There you go. So in Toronto, so in Toronto it's the TTC, the Toronto Transit Commission. They were trying to force their employees to be vaccinated, and a good example I have from somebody I know is you're a mechanic, you're alone in a work bay working on buses, and they still make you wear a mask by yourself with no one around, and so now that person has to be vaccinated. So the first glimmer of hope here is their union is actually planning on fighting back against this mandate. The first I've heard of any group of people in the country fighting back, because apparently they were swarmed with complaints as soon as that was announced, and that would be a big deal. I think if they overturn that or they blocked that, because it's the biggest city in the country, then all of a sudden you might have people saying, hey, wait a minute, why isn't my union doing anything? I don't think I've heard the police union say that they are mandating it yet, but that's a big talking point in this election. Justin Trudeau saying, can you believe the Conservatives aren't mandating their employees be vaccinated, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lovely time to be alive, but that's a glimmer of hope for Canadians, I think, especially. They might come up with a quiet solution that doesn't get announced, but if that ends up happening, I'm sure the news will get around it. And I think that would be a good thing.
And I think to that point, the sheriff's department in San Francisco had been pushing back. I believe the sheriff's department and the union that represents them has been pushing back against the mandates there. Same with the fire department in San Francisco. So, and that's San Francisco, right? And of course, the local fake newspaper, the SF Chronicle, said that the sheriff's department in San Francisco wrote a conspiracy tinged letter to the governor or to the mayor, because this is a city thing. So they wrote a conspiracy tinged letter to the mayor claiming that they had constitutionally protected God-given rights. Unbelievable. And people are pushing back. It's weird too, the dynamic between New York and California, right? Because the people, the voters, the citizens got it done to put Newsom on the recall ballot. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party got rid of Cuomo while the people didn't really care. Now, when Cuomo stepped down, we had those viral videos of the young New Yorkers, celebrating his resignation and all that. But so clearly something's happening. It's happening in different ways, but we're working towards something. All the restaurants, again, suing de Blasio, which is hilarious because in my time, all the time I spent in New York, I never met one person who proudly said, I voted for de Blasio and I like him for this, and this reason. Never once. But now all of a sudden, when he says you need to present your papers, people are actually obeying it. Like, he was a joke for my entire time there, but now he makes this outlandish rule and they do it.
I saw one of the guys from Rebel interviewing some teenage communists. I'm painting a broad brush based on their blue and purple hair, and they're sitting there watching one of the anti-lockdown protests, and they're just like, yes, there should be vaccine passports. Yes, there should be this and that. And it's like, aren't you the ones who are like, you hate the government, you don't trust them, but like as soon as like you put like a public health face on it, which is a department of the government, all of a sudden like it's the best idea and it can't be questioned. And but these are all overweight girls, of course, so they're most at risk. But it's weird how this happens. How it's just like we hate the government for everything, but as soon as the government tells us what to do because it's for like the greater good, all of a sudden we care.
Yeah,
why aren't you convinced that being in Afghanistan is for the greater good? Why aren't you convinced that like shutting down BLM rallies is for the greater good? But like for this topic, because it's like it makes you feel like a good person, I guess.
Because we got so inundated with the propaganda from early on. I mean, I always like to take it back to those viral videos of people dropping dead in the streets of China. I mean, they worked on it for so long that people finally bought it. And it's just crazy to think like, with the restaurant situation out in New York, I mean, guys, what's he going to do? Even the police force that he, is manager of, they don't even like him. He defunded them by $1 billion. He told you that you aren't even, the cops are basically, they can't even stop a riot, but now somehow they're tasked with preventing people from entering a restaurant. And what's he going to do? He's going to come to your restaurant and give you a bill for $1,000 and say, you owe me $1,000 now? Is he going to put all the restaurant owners in jail? It's not real. None of it's real.
Who's going to check these things? How are you going to stop when you're going in a club and hundreds of people are gathering in? You're going to stop and check everything? No, they're just going to be flashing things, and you're going to go to jail for 30 years. You have a fake vaccine passport.
Did you see 7 years for fake vaccine passport. But did you see some of the lines? There's footage of the lines outside high schools in Los Angeles going viral because they're checking the status, I guess, the negative test status of students before they go into school. The lines around the block. So they're outside, but they're all in a line waiting to go into
school.
Blame
these parents.
I
blame these parents.
So they have to there are some places in California where they are required to get the vaccine. They are required to wear a mask. And they are required to get weekly tests. So if you have to do everything, then none of it matters.
It's like they're trying to build a generation of just pure compliance for the greater good. So it makes me think of the North Korea lady. It's like everything you do is for the state and to be a better person to everybody else. So you have to do literally whatever you're told.
It's insane.
All right, Eric Butler, let's try to get a guest for Thursday and come back strong, and we'll get some opium in us, which I think would actually make us tired. But
but at least we got the echo thing figured out, and I think we might have a guest, so I'll confirm.
Oh, interesting.
So I'll double check with her and make sure that she's still good, and I guess technically we're going to be doing 2 this week.
Unbelievable. My calendar starts on Hyundai, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Hyundai, Thursday, Friday. Free ad for Hyundai.